The first Deathmatch Tournament of 2023 was held on January 13th at HorrorSlam, and yes, this took place on Friday the 13th. In the first match of the tournament, Chuck Stein would take on Bobby Beverly and the HorrorSlam heavyweight champion, Malcolm Monroe III. The Bev would be the first to get some door treatment, but after some stiff shots from Chuck and MM3, Beverly was able to recover and take full control of the match. He used a chair wrapped in barbed wire, some gusset plates, and a carpet strip door to show his dominance. Chuck would try to fight through his blood loss to stay in this match, but a 2-on-1 assault with some syringes wouldn't help his efforts. The needles were stuck through his ears, into his arms, through each cheek, and even down through his lip, pinning him to the top turnbuckle. Unfortunately, the camera was focused on Chuck, so we missed Malcolm using his chloroform to put Bobby Beverly to sleep and pin him to advance to the finals. With carpet strips surrounding the ring, Remington Roar faced off against Jeremiah Goldmain and the Hardcore Hillbilly. Roar and the Hillbilly beat the hell out of each other with carpet strips on the outside, while Goldmain tried to come off the rope for a sneak attack, but as you can kind of see, it didn't quite work out in his favor. After getting everything under the sun stapled to his body, Hardcore Hillbilly finally got some offense in with this DDT onto this chair, and then in came Goldmain to strike when he saw a free opportunity with some gusset plates. That wouldn't stop him from getting powerbombed, sending him right back out of the ring though. As the Hillbilly was setting up a barbed wire door in the corner, he took the most devastating looking spear I have ever seen from Roar. Jeremiah Goldmain snuck into the ring one last time for a sneak attack on Roar, but was decapitated. Remington Roar drove him down to the mat one last time for good measure to score the win. John Wayne Murdoch came out first, putting his HorrorSlam Deathmatch title on the line in the first round of the Friday the 13th tournament, a title that he has held for 499 days. His opponent would be the veteran DBA. Murdoch jumped DBA right off the start of this thing, not even letting him get into the ring. Then one bundle of tubes to the back of the head set DBA off. These two lit each other up with tons of tubes to the head. I haven't seen DBA this fired up in a long time. And as for the crowd, they were absolutely loving this. As the pace of the match slowed down a bit, they battled around the ringside area using more glass, some chains, scissors even, and of course a staple gun to the groin. And then DBA was nearly broken in half with a suplex onto a chair, but he refused to stay down. He would slam Murdoch down onto that chair with a DVD and then finish him off with a flaming elbow drop. Big upset here in the first round, but DBA advances and he becomes the HorrorSlam Deathmatch champion for the first time in his career. Jumping right into the next match, Matthew Justice took on the masked JJ Escobar. You know, for a while, I was starting to feel sorry for JJ here. He was getting destroyed throughout this whole thing. Just when I thought JJ couldn't take anymore, Justice attached a stack of firecrackers to his head and lit the wick. You know what? It was cool to see a chop from Piss Jug Mike in this one. Things continued to escalate as a weed whacker was introduced, but crazy enough, it was used as a battering ram to slam it through a pane of glass. All right, no way things could possibly get any worse for Escobar, right? Are you kidding me? He kicked out of that. So after all of that, this chair shot right here put Matthew Justice down for the 3 count. JJ Escobar looked just as shocked as everybody else to get the win here. Right after the match, an angry John Wayne Murdoch ran out and declared that he was taking JJ's spot in the finals. Next up in triple threat action, a barefoot Brutus Atwell took on Satu Jin and the legendary Madman Pondo in the first round. I've never seen a walker used in such a deadly way here, but Pondo drove Jin face first through the glass propped on top of it. Brutus was also chucked head first through a TV wedged in between the ropes. The blades were broke out as Pondo got cut up, then he took his own shot slicing up Satu Jin, and then it may be hard to see, but Pondo was using his knife on Brutus's bare feet here between his toes. Some more glass was shattered before Jin would plant Brutus down with a Uranagi to get the win. So to the 5-way elimination finals we go. The winner would not only win the Friday the 13th tournament, they would also leave with the HorrorSlam Deathmatch title that DBA would be defending here. He would be defending against Satu Jin, the Carnivore Remington Roar, Malcolm Monroe III, who would be looking to become a double champion, and also John Wayne Murdoch, who just lost the title in the first round and took JJ Escobar's spot in this match. Very quickly, this would break down into full chaos, with fights breaking out all over the place, making it hard to keep up with the action. Look at this, there was just glass flying all over the place. Murdoch and DBA picked up right where they left off in the first round, trading light tube headshots. There would be some 2-on-1 taking place, with DBA and his son Malcolm teaming up against Murdoch. They would also set their sights on Roar at one point. But with the tournament and title on the line, that alliance would not last forever. Speaking of alliances, just when it looked like Murdoch was going to team up with his friend Satu Jin, he used a taser on his back, rolling him up to eliminate him from this match. Just 10 seconds later, Murdoch rolled DBA up, eliminating him from this match as well. With DBA out and now down to just 3, we are guaranteed a new champion. Malcolm would steal Murdoch's taser, using it on him before driving him down into his own knee to finish off the Duke of Hardcore. A loud roar chant came from the crowd as the 2 last remaining competitors squared off. A pane of glass was set up, but as Malcolm tried to use his chloroform on Roar, he was able to break away, drilling MM3 with a right, and then brought him down through the glass to score the win. Remington Roar wins the first tournament of 2023 and will also be taking home the Horror Slam Deathmatch title. Well, not really. Satu Jin would come out, cashing in his anytime title shot, beating Roar to claim the title, spoiling his night. With the new first round matches set, we saw Aiden Bale take on Christian Ross and Ryan Redfield in the first match of the night. This match felt very quick, with Bale trying to get the submission win with the Texas Cloverleaf. But Ross broke that up with a trash can hit to the head and quickly put Big Red through a door with a Uranagi to get that first win. In the next match, Jimmy Lyon started things off by trading headbutts back and forth with Lady Blakely, which apparently resulted in a minor concussion, according to his Twitter post anyway. Regardless of all of that, Chondo did get the win after he pinned Cecilio Vega. Then next up, Mouse defeated Anthrax and Frank Bonetti after Mouse had a couple DDTs onto the concrete floor, followed by this face plant onto Bonetti. I mean, there were thumbtacks laying on the concrete floor also, but I think those were the least of his worries. In the last 3-way match of the first round, Alex Stretch went through hell and sparklers to pull off the surprise win over Chris Bradley and Declan Grant. This brought us to the finals, where all the winners from the first round were facing off in a 4-way elimination match. In what I think was the best match of the tournament, Mouse was first eliminated after he tapped out in a crossface with glass being grinded into his face. Next to be taken out was Christian Ross when Chondo came off the top of a ladder with a double barefoot stomp onto the light tubes, sending Ross through the table. Oh, just a side note, I love how Jimmy Lyon came out and spread broken glass all over the floor, all while wrestling completely barefoot, as he normally does. I mean, it is what it is, people. So things came down to just Jimmy Lyon and Alex Stretch. And that's where Scrawny Shawnee helped duct tape light tubes around the body of Stretch, allowing him to climb up the ladder and hit a big splash through another table.
Alex Stretch is the king of the no-ring deathmatch!
Yep, and that's it. Alex Stretch received his crown and joins Low Life Louie as a winner of H2O's King of the No Ring Deathmatch Tournament. And for the second tournament of the month, we are still looking at Hardcore Hustle Organization. We are going to the Tremont Angels of Deathmatch Tournament. This was an all-women's tournament with once again several dropouts. When the card was finalized, we had 7 ladies all looking to take home 1 trophy. In the first match, we saw triple threat action between Lady Blakely, Tara Calloway, and Mickey Knuckles. After what looked like Lady Blakely was knocked out cold from a full Nelson slam, Mickey Knuckles was able to later hit her pump handle slam onto carpet strips to get that win. Then we had the Doors of Deathmatch, where Jess Moss was taking on the first ever Tremont Deathmatch Tournament winner, Kennedy Copeland. And you know what? I think there seemed to be a third competitor in this match working against Kennedy Copeland, and that was Barbed Wire. She had a little bundle of it stuck on her midway through the match, and the ref just, I don't know, he just didn't help out. He tried to help her for like maybe 2 seconds, and then kind of just gave up. So Copeland just wrestled the rest of the match with barbed wire wrapped around her back and around her leg. She would then hit a knockout shot, lock Jess Moss in a submission maneuver, and force her to tap out. In the third and final match of the first round, Sawyer Wreck defeated Ziggy Haim in a Bulldozer's barbed wire brutality match. Ziggy Haim showed a lot of energy and did a great job in her first ever death match, but she was no match for Rek, who dominated pretty much the entire thing. The end came when Rek gave Haim a choke slam into the barbed wire pit to finish her off. This would be another 2-round tournament, so we find ourselves in the finals where all 3 of the first round winners meet to see who takes home the trophy. This would be a hardcore heaven, gates of glass match where we saw plenty of blood spill, including a very scary moment. While Mickie was going to hit Rek with a bundle of broken light tubes, she accidentally ran them into her own inner thigh, cutting herself very, very badly. Insanely to her credit, she taped it up, kept on going, and finished the match. After plenty more mayhem, Sawyer Rek won the match with a double-handed chokeslam, pinning both of her opponents at the same time. Also, from the sounds of things after the match, Mickie had some teeth chipped as well, so it was just a really rough night for the H2O Hall of Famer. But there you have it, folks. Sawyer Rek gets her first ever Deathmatch Tournament trophy and is the winner of Tremont's 3rd Deathmatch Tournament. XPW's California 2 event was once again host of the King of the Deathmatch Tournament, and just like last year's show, this was very long. I am talking 6 hours plus long. So with a lot of matches to cover, let's run through this entire tournament. So kicking off the tournament with the first match, we saw Shane Mercer beat the big man Terex. In the very first spot of this match, Mercer whipped Terex into the doors with light tubes on it and cut his arm up very badly. With blood pouring all over the ground, Mercer had to show off his strength early, hitting an FU through a barbed wire board to pick up the win. With this bad of a cut, the match was obviously rushed, barely lasting only 4 minutes long. Then next up, we had Dirty Ron, who lost immediately to Drake Younger because of another really bad cut. This one he had on his hand. So 2 matches in, 2 bad cuts, ending the matches early. That is not a good sign. In this match was a best 2 out of 3 log cabin light tubes match where you could see Drake quickly moving around to end the match as quickly as possible, barely lasting about 5 minutes. For the third match, Arrow Boy took on The Body in a match featuring a ton of short ladders for some reason. These two had a pretty solid match, seeing a nice frog splash finish through a table and light tubes onto The Body, with Arrow Boy getting the win and moving on. In the fourth match of the opening round, Eric Ryan took on Lou Dark Shaitan in a match that started out really good. It really did. But after watching the finish several times in a row, I still can't tell what the hell happened. I assume it was supposed to be some type of angle where Becky Hate came out to attack Ludark, but Becky and Eric kind of shoved Ludark back and forth a couple times, and then Becky just walks out of the ring, leaving Eric to pin her without anything really happening to her. She even got her shoulder up before the 3 count, but referee Manny was in on it too, I guess. I don't know. This was just a very odd finish that soured the match big time. So Becky Hate came back out for the next match of the round, but since Oren Veit couldn't make the show, The Body had to pull double duty and entered the tournament, this time as a woman, to take on Becky. Then we had Kat Martini come out to distract Becky, allowing The Body to hit 2 DVDs through light tubes to score the win. I know this is all sounding a little convoluted. I'm just telling you what happened. So after that, Big F and Joe took on JD Horror, who was coming out of retirement to enter the tournament. These guys brawled all around the 2 rings using light tubes and guardrails and pretty much anything else they could get their hands on. Joe picked up the win after a running senton onto a light tube bundle laid across the chest of JD Horror. Next, the XPW World Champion Masada faced Judge Joe Dredd. And I believe this would go on to be the best match in the opening round. Masada beat the brakes off of Dredd here. He destroyed chairs over his head. He tore him up with barbed wire. He cracked him with whatever the hell this is. He hit a leaping elbow to the outside through a table, which you don't see Masada do too much. Cinder blocks were even used here. This match was just overall solid. The end came after shoving skewers into Dredd's head, and then he gave him a big knee to finish him off. In the last match of the opening round, Hardcore Hillbilly went one-on-one against UK's Lou Nixon. That's right, we got the MAGA USA versus the UK here. I'm gonna tell you right now, I did not expect to see Hardcore Hillbilly try to fly, but when he did, of course it ended with a crash in a burn. Nixon had to drive 3 Kenzans into Hillbilly's head, smash him with a chair, and then kick light tubes into his face, and continue after that to pummel him until the MAGA referee Manny Ramirez had to stop the match before his man was killed. On to round number 2 now. Shane Mercer faced The Body in an absolute wild match. The big highlight from this match here was when Mercer chucked the body from one ring all the way to the other. Obviously, that wouldn't be the end of the match, though, because Mercer would dish out a little more punishment before finally hitting his trademark moonsault fallaway slam to eventually pick up that win. Mercer moves on to the finals in impressive fashion. Then we had what may have been the match of the tournament, Eric Ryan versus Drake Younger for the first time ever. Much like Drake's other matches, things start off a little slow with straight-up mat wrestling before progressing up to ultra-violence. We also had Eric Ryan's trademark terracotta pots added into the mix. Overall, very good match here that saw Eric Ryan eat a brutal-looking Drake's Landing to put him out of the tournament. And the hits just kept coming because up next, we got Big F and Joe taking on Arrow Boy. These two had a really fun death match here, which saw some new and innovative spots. In what I think was a mild upset for the crowd, Arrow Boy put Joe through a door to score the 3-count victory, moving on to the finals to start this little Cinderella run. These two really did battle all around the arena. I think this match deserves your attention, just like the entire second round here. So we're up to the last match in the second round. Lou Nixon took on Masada. Nixon brought his brutal kicks to the table and actually dished out more punishment than we're used to seeing Masada take. I'm sure this match also featured more submission moves than people expected, and you know what? In death matches, I enjoy that. The end did come though for Nixon when Masada powerbombed him onto the barbed wire ropes to pick up the 3-count. So finally, we have made it to the finals after 6 hours of action in a fatal 4-way match. Arrow Boy, Shane Mercer, Drake Younger, and Masada went to battle. These guys beat the holy hell out of one another to see who would leave the 2023 King of the Deathmatch Tournament winner. There was a lot of good stuff that did happen in this match, but I think most of it is overshadowed by the whole Masada fire spot. But from start to finish, like I said, I do believe this was a good finals match. And you know what? Speaking of that fire spot, after suffering second-degree burns, the dude stayed out there and finished the match. Absolutely insane. During the finals, the guardrails were completely wiped out. The air was cloudy from plumes of light tube dust. A man was burned alive. Arrow Boy almost completed the Cinderella story that was being told, but that was kind of cut short when Mercer military pressed him out onto Masada through a table. And when Mercer went for his fall-away slam onto Drake, Drake countered it with a pin attempt and landed the 3-count. Match over, tournament over, we have our winner. After already starting out with a great year of matches, Drake Younger takes home the XPW King of the Deathmatch trophy. But that has been your extremely long recap to an extremely long tournament, the King of the Deathmatch Tournament 2023. Starting off the first triple threat match for round number 1, we saw All-Star Matlock take on the Deathmatch Jesus, Dmitry Alexandrov. And with Oren Veit not able to make the show, we had a surprise replacement, WrestleRave's fan favorite, Just Nick. Early on, Just Nick showed his impressive speed, but Locke countered a second buckshot lariat, driving Nick into a barbed wire board to eliminate him first in the match. After coming down to Alexandrov and Locke, the ultra violence was turned up a notch to see who would move on to the finals. Even after getting 2 syringes stuck through his cheeks, Alexandrov was able to German suplex Locke through a door strapped with light tubes just before finishing him off to pick up the 3-count victory. Up next, we had the Hoss match of round number 1. Uncivil Satu Jin came down to the ring to take on another man making his WrestleRave debut, Hoodfoot Mo Atlas, and their opponent, a local fan favorite, Sam Stackhouse. And naturally, the Outsiders double-team Stackhouse to kick things off and eventually smash multiple light tubes over his head before double choke slamming Sam through a door to eliminate him from the match. Things started to look pretty good for Jin after a big belly-to-belly suplex, his use of a gusset plate bat, and he even put Hoodfoot through a light tube Eiffel Tower, but it was the RKO out of nowhere through a bundle to turn the tide. And then before you knew it, Hoodfoot reversed a vertical suplex into a roll-up to pull out that win. And if I was Jin, I would have argued that just a little bit more because that shoulder was definitely off the mat. But then we came to our final 3-way of round number 1. We had the Deathmatch Hall of Famer, Madman Pondo. He came out to face Remington Roar, who, by the way, came out dual-wielding machetes. And their opponent was the current WrestleRave Deathmatch champion, Dr. Redacted. This match pretty much saw it all. I'm talking Roar using his actual machete, smashing cinder blocks over Pondo's back, Redacted using himself like a human wrecking ball, Pondo pulling out a knife, carving up Roar's head, and then using that same knife in the doctor's mouth, Pondo driving Redacted's head down into the light tubes, Roar slamming Redacted onto a chair and light tubes, Roar military pressing Redacted through a door, and I think you're sensing a pattern here. Yeah, Redacted took a beating. And the crazy thing was, all of this was before an elimination. The first elimination came after Pondo laid another cinder block over the head of Remington Roar before smashing it with a sledgehammer. Wow, yes, Roar was easily eliminated at that point. But then right after that, Redacted was able to hit a great-looking frog splash to then pin and beat the Hall of Famer. That means Dr. Redacted advances to the finals and will be taking his deathmatch title with him. Speaking of those finals, we saw Dmitry Alexandrov take on Hoodfoot and the deathmatch champ, Dr. Redacted. I'm not kidding when I say this match started out with a bang, with Redacted catching Alexandrov off guard during the ring announcements. This finals kind of resembled Suplex City here because everybody was getting a ton of offense in. Later on into the match, though, after taking a scary-looking powerbomb to the outside of the ring, something kind of weird happened. Dmitry gave Hoodfoot a clothesline and would go for a pin attempt, and the ref counted to 3, but that was after Hoodfoot got his shoulder up. The crowd was obviously angry that Hoodfoot was wrongly eliminated here, and he smashed some light tubes over the ref Killian's back before leaving the ring. With that surprise elimination, that means the Death Triad 2 winner was down between Redacted and Alexandrov. We got to see some solid brawling and high risk take place outside of the ring, but eventually they fought their way back in for the bloodshed to come to a close. It wasn't the fisherman suplex through light tubes. It wasn't a DVD through a door. It wasn't even Redacted's frog splash in the match. It was Matlock running in to low blow Alexandrov, setting him up for an absolutely brutal looking curb stomp to finally end the match. Redacted sat on Dmitry's chest, picking up the 3 count and the Death Triad 2 win. He walked into the Death Triad 2, your WrestleRave Deathmatch champion, and Dr. Redacted walks out with the title still in his possession. For the first time in Tournament of Survival history, 12 competitors would do their best to survive 3 rounds of ultraviolence to see who would take home the TOS trophy. In round number 1, IWS Canadian champion Green Phantom entered the tournament to take on one of GCW's best tag teams, both Ciclope and Muero Extremo. Now this would be triple threat action, so only one man would advance. Now as you would expect, Green Phantom was double teamed early on, but it wouldn't last forever. After a vicious chair shot from Extremo, he would pick Phantom up, but it looked like maybe his knees buckled right here. I don't know, something happened. He told the ref something and then headed straight to the back. Maybe he suffered an injury, I'm not sure. All I do know is he did not return to this match. The TOS 3 winner Ciclope would go on to dish out punishment with a senton onto glass and then later a frog splash onto a pane of glass to score the victory and move on to round number 2. In match number 2, the bad boy Joey Janela would have his hands full with 2 of Pro Wrestling Freedom stars Tomoya Hirata and Tota Segura. This ended up being a very hard-hitting and sometimes a high-flying contest, which saw several back-and-forth combinations, as well as a creative Tower of Doom. Joey almost took the win with this double stomp, but it would be Segura who would steal the win with this headlock takeover pin combination. Oh, and by the way, long hair in barbed wire is just never a good idea. In the next match, El Desperado entered TOS easily the best dressed, but he would have to take on John Wayne Murdoch and Matt Tremont, 2 favorites to win the whole tournament. Murdoch would do Murdoch things here and start to rip apart the mask of El Desperado. The shocker here was Tremont joined in on driving broken light tubes into his head. Later we would see a triangle rapid fire light tube trade-off that no one really got the better of. Eventually Tremont was practically taken out of this match after Desperado knocked him off the ring apron out onto barbed wire webbing, which he was never able to get out of. Back in the ring, Murdoch would finish El Desperado off with a Deep South Destroyer through a pane of glass, advancing him to the semifinals. Capping off round number 1, we had one of the most anticipated matches of the tournament, with Casey Kirk taking on Sawyer Wreck and the GCW Ultraviolet champion, Rina Yamashita. This match also started out as a 2-on-1, but usually the 2 have the advantage. Here, Wreck took it to her opponents with her gory special and Boston Crab combo. All three wrestlers would get their hands on a gusset plate, but oddly enough, instead of using them on their opponents, they drove them into their own foreheads. That's a new strategy to me. Later, we would see a double choke slam through a pane of glass to the concrete floor. Believe it or not, Casey later went on social media and said that she did not suffer a concussion there. She continued the match, smashing Wreck with a chair strapped with light tubes, only to take the Splash Mountain Bomb onto Sawyer Wreck. After that, Yamashita would pin both of her opponents at the same time, advancing to round number 2. In round number 2, John Wayne Murdoch and Cyclope kicked off things by trading light tube bundle shots. This match featured a weed whacker, which Murdoch took twice to the stomach and once to the head, which may have been the first time I've ever seen that. Murdoch would later steal Cyclope's headphones to hit a Deep South Destroyer through a barbed wire door, but Cyclope jumped up straight to his feet, feeling that adrenaline. Murdoch would have to drive Cyclope through a pane of glass and then pull him over into his trademark submission maneuver, forcing the TOS 3 winner to tap out. That means John Wayne Murdoch heads to the Tournament of Survival 8 finals. In the next match, Rina Yamashita took on Todo Segura, both of which were taking part in their second Tournament of Survival. And I'm going to be honest with you, this may have been the best match of the entire tournament. These two were fired up the whole way through, with Rina eating plenty of light tubes in more ways than one. Rina was the clear favorite here, by the way, which Todo did not care for. As much as he seemed to bully her in this match, Rina was able to finally hit that Splash Mountain Bomb to pin him in the end. So that is it. Rina Yamashita advances to take on John Wayne Murdoch in the finals. And that match would be the very next on the show. We had light tubes surrounding the ring as these two went to war. Using the advantage of rest, the Duke of Hardcore was able to control most of this finals contest. It seemed no matter what he did though, whether it was a stump puller pile driver or rapid fire light tube shots, Rina just would not stay down. Now you would think Rina tossing Murdoch off of a scaffold through a pane of glass followed by her frog splash would end the match, but no, Murdoch would kick out at 1. Yeah, 1, and the crowd was very pissed off. But she would hit a sit-out Splash Mountain Bomb to finally score the 3 count and become the TOS 8 winner. Much to the crowd's delight, Rina Yamashita writes her name in the history books as the first woman to ever win the Tournament of Survival. We head to Indianapolis, Indiana for AWR's Asylum Deathmatch Tournament 4, where 16 wrestlers would go to battle over 2 days to see who would leave with the ADT4 trophy. Now, there were a ton of matches over these 3 rounds, so let's get right into things with our first match. Austin Ryan would take on Cole Radrick, who was entering his 4th straight ADT, being the only wrestler to compete in all 4 tournaments. Radrick would battle through thumbtack bat shots, a Northern Light suplex into tacks, an ankle lock while laying in tacks, all to try and steal the win at the end with a roll-up. But Ryan reversed that, stealing the win back for himself. That leaves Ratty Daddy 0-4 through 4 ADT appearances. Rebecca Payne was up next to take on a tournament fill-in, Alex Stretch, in the next match. The Queen of the Death Matches 2008 and 2021 winner, Rebecca Payne brought the heat in round number 1, but it was Alex Stretch who won the skewer exchange. He would also go on to win a lot more than that with his flying headbutt from the top rope. So that means the last-second fill-in, Alex Stretch, moved on to the second round. We had more fill-ins here with the next match. Bull Bronson stepped up to take on the ADT1 winner, Dale Patricks. Bronson used his size advantage here in this one, at one point looking to take out the knee of Patricks, but Dale refused to forfeit the match and jumped right back into the ring. With a bum knee and all, Patricks was able to outmaneuver Bronson, roll him up, and get the win. Sarah Dox came out next to take on Hardway Heater in a last motherfucker standing match. In what was a total shocker here, Sarah pulled Heater down from the top rope, slamming him down onto gusset plates and thumbtack bats. She would then roll him out of the ring where he just couldn't get up to answer the 10 count. That means Sarah Dox advanced, eliminating Hardway Heater. Next up, we had 2 people entering the Asylum Deathmatch Tournament for the first time. We're talking Hoodfoot Mo Atlas and his opponent, Brian Richards, who came out busted open already. In what turned out to be almost a normal match, Hoodfoot would eventually hit his Saito suplex to pick up the win. There was a little bit of bloodshed here, but Hoodfoot made it out of round number 1 pretty much unscathed. Then in a shark teeth death match, Chet Ripley faced off against Brad Cash. We saw Chet Ripley flying everywhere in this one, across the ring, out of the ring, off some speakers, into Brad with a Rough Rider. I mean, Chet got in plenty of offense here. He would try his best to carve Cash up, but in the end, he would take a big chokeslam onto a pile of shark teeth that would do him in. Last year's ADT winner Remington Roar entered the tournament next to take on I Am the Provider. You might as well have made this a handicap match though, because I Am the Product got involved midway through this match and just never left. Roar wouldn't have much of a problem though, because he fought off both men nearly with ease. A muscle buster later, and Remington Roar found himself advancing to the next round. In the last match of round number 1, Jimmy Chondo Lion took on his friend and the man with a hurt leg, Matt Tremont. And yes, this was a gusset fuckery death match, which we saw Chondo bleeding buckets not long into this thing. And Tremont would soon join him on that journey. Tremont foiled a non-boot scrape from Jimmy by throwing a gusset plate under his foot, and that may have just been the best counter of all time. We would later get an attitude adjustment onto a chair with gusset plates attached to it for the win for Matt Tremont. Now on to round number 2 and night number 2. Sadly, last year's winner Remington Roar had a match with Mickey Knuckles earlier on this show where he did beat her to win the AWR Revolutionary title, but he sustained an injury during that match and was forced to pull out of the tournament. Hoodfoot would receive a bye and move on to the finals. So in the first actual match of round number 2, Austin Ryan targeted the knee of Dale Patricks. Dale limped all over the ringside area as Ryan tracked him down, dishing out more punishment to him. Fighting on one leg, Patricks had to resort to any means necessary and low-blowed Ryan, then followed it up with a chokeslam through a television to pick up that win. Yep, hurt knee and all, Dale Patricks advanced to the final round. Brad Cash would come down to the ring next to take on Sarah Dox. Early on into this match, it looks like Sarah cut her right ear pretty bad and would start losing a lot of blood. Regardless though, Brad just completely dominated this match. There was a failed high-risk maneuver where Brad capitalized with a barrage of light tubes to eventually keep Sarah down for the 3-count victory. With that win, Brad Cash joined Hoodfoot and Dale Patricks in the finals. But we had one more match in round number 2, and that would be Matt Tremont taking on one of his H2O students, Alex Stretch. There was some barroom brawling, there were forks, there were plenty of doors. And speaking of doors, there was an attitude adjustment onto a light tube door, which Stretch shot his shoulder up only on a 1 count. He was then powerbombed onto a gusset plate covered pallet, only for him to kick out at 1 yet again. But the 3rd time is a charm. One more AA and Stretch was out for good. So Matt Tremont is the 4th man in that finals match. And it is that time. It is a 4-way elimination death match. We have Matt Tremont, we have Hoodfoot, we have Brad Cash, and we have the first ever ADT winner, Dale Patricks. Tremont was the first to taste light tubes, as this broke down into pure chaos with dozens of light tube shots to the head. And then midway through the match, we saw the canvas removed from the ring, leaving the exposed boards. With this match being elimination rules, we first saw Brad Cash eliminated by Dale Patricks after a Uranage onto the boards and a boatload of broken glass. Then almost immediately after that, Hoodfoot planted Patricks down onto the boards with a brain buster to eliminate him. The intensity continued as Tremont and Hoodfoot battled it out over that trophy. Even after Hoodfoot's Saito suplex from the middle rope, Tremont was barely, and I mean barely, able to get his shoulder up. Still in control though, Hoodfoot would hit one more Saito suplex. This time, it would be enough. With the final elimination of the match, Hoodfoot Mo Atlas makes history, becoming the first black wrestler to ever win a traditional deathmatch tournament.
Hoodfoot has become the god of death!
Out to maybe Michigan we go for RPW's first annual King of the Kill Deathmatch Tournament. It was held on August 12th. The tournament kicked off with Mexico's own Crazy King taking on the murder surgeon Dr. Redacted. Just in this first round match, we saw both guys pull out all the stops. Gusset Plate started things off, followed by trading light tube shots, and then Redacted got a little target practice in. And things got a little wild when Redacted literally brought out a bomb to attack his opponent. Keeping his foot on that gas, Doc put his trademark trash can over his head and leapt out of the ring, drilling King. King got in some nice offense too with this nice DVD from the top rope, completely flattening this chair. The match then came to an end after 2 Saito suplexes, followed by 3 German suplexes, and then Redacted finished King off with a curb stomp onto some light tubes. Dr. Redacted moves on to round number 2. As for match number 2, we saw Judge Joe Dredd make his RPW debut against one of the hottest deathmatch wrestlers in all of the indies right now. We're talking about Hoodfoot. Trading shoulder blocks started us off as both big men tried to get the other off of their feet, but to no avail, at least to begin with, because Hoodfoot would eventually make Dredd taste some glass. Pulling out a couple dirty tricks, the judge later tried to choke Hoodfoot out with his counselor's tie, and then he slung him through a table with it. After setting up some chairs with light tubes laying across them, Dredd made a critical mistake by jaw-jacking with the fans, which allowed Hoodfoot to counter him with a Saito suplex onto the mat, and then one more through chairs to pick up the win, advancing to the next round. Next up, the Carnivore Remington Roar took on Mr. Lego's Tommy Vendetta. Roar had a clear size and strength advantage, but Tommy is as scrappy as they come and took control of the match early using his Nerf thumbtack gun. That control, though, went right out the window the second Roar introduced cinder blocks into the match. He took Tommy for a ride with a running power slam through a light tube Eiffel Tower and then down onto his own Legos. Things ramped up towards the end of this match when Tommy nailed Roar with a huge light tube bundle, but was immediately put through a door where he kicked out at 1. He scooped Roar up and drove him through a second table with his backpack cannonball, and then finished his opponent off with one final pile driver. Tommy Vendetta gets the win, moving on. In the last match of the first round, Joel Bateman would battle the XPW King of the Deathmatches champ, Schlack. As you could predict, this match saw several wild-looking light tube shots. I'm going to say this, not many people can go toe-to-toe with Schlack, but Bateman proved he is not your average man. I mean, look at this. Joel got folded up with this powerbomb onto his neck, onto a razor board, but somehow kicked out. Strangely enough, Schlack would go to the top rope for a 3rd time in this match, but this time he lit his elbow pad on fire and then missed an elbow drop, allowing Joel to wrap a plastic bag over his head. Schlack eventually countered and started smothering Joel with that same plastic bag, and just when it looked like Joel couldn't take it anymore, Judge Joe Dredd attacked Schlack from behind with the XPW King of the Deathmatches title. Those two fought to the back, and Joel Bateman was awarded the win via forfeit, much to the fans' displeasure. Now it's time for round number 2, where Hoodfoot came to the ring first to take on Dr. Redacted, who would jumpstart this match by spitting poison into his face. To be honest though, that seemed to only piss Hoodfoot off, who would put Redacted's head through a door with brute force. Doc did his best to fight back into this match with a nice shotgun kick here, but he soon ate a Saito suplex through a door. Pretty much out on his feet, Dr. Redacted felt desperate enough to low blow Hoodfoot. Not just once, but twice, followed by a roaring elbow, and then in a shocker, Dr. Redacted pinned Hoodfoot to advance to the final round. To see who would join him, Tommy Vendetta was up next to face the man from down under, Joel Bateman. This match was on the short side, but filled with action as Bateman looked to try and put an end to Vendetta early. Now, I did not expect to see any dry ice used in this tournament, but Joel Bateman set up 2 piles on top of some TVs. And if that wasn't enough, of course he had to add some light tubes and a pane of glass onto one of those piles. And it all worked out in horrible fashion for him, because Tommy drove his head into the first pile of dry ice, and then pile drove him through the second pile. Yeah, no chance of kicking out there. Tommy Vendetta scored the 3 count, meaning he will be moving on to the finals to face Dr. Redacted. And here we are at those finals, where this match would be a barbed wire coffin match, meaning the only way to win is to put your opponent into the coffin and shut both of the lids. Both men entered this match after taking an absolute beating in the first 2 rounds, and I think it's just a miracle that they could even stand up straight. Legos, light tubes, and fists were all used here to start things off. Redacted hit a DVD through glass in one corner, and not looking to be outdone, Vendetta responded with his backpack cannonball into the other corner. Redacted would then foil Tommy's plan by drilling him in the face with some light tubes and then bringing him down head first through a pane of glass. Now, of course, these guys spilled out into the crowd, and as they worked their way over to this U-Haul, you just knew somebody was in for a bad time. Dr. Redacted backbody dropped Vendetta onto the barbed wire trampoline and then climbed on top of the U-Haul truck with his trash can in tow. Now, looking more like the suicide surgeon, Redacted blindly jumped off of the truck looking to land on Vendetta, but all he found round was barbed wire. As the match found its way back into the ring, Redacted just wasn't the same as Vendetta pelted him with light tubes after light tubes. Tommy Vendetta hit a pile driver on the ground and then chokeslammed Doc into the coffin to shut the doors and win the first ever King of the Kill Deathmatch Tournament. From start to finish, I can't think of many tournaments who had the debut quite like the King of the Kill in 2023. ICW held their 11th Insane 8 Deathmatch Tournament on August 20th, and that is where Mickey Knuckles would take on Dr. Redacted in the first match of the first round. This match got started off with trash can shots, Death Valley drivers, and interesting pin attempts. And at least Mickey got what she was asking for.
Come on, play with me.
The Doctor took a barbed wire bat to the sack and then was put through a door with Mickey's trademark pump handle slam. It may have just been her ass in his face, but he was able to kick out at one. They fought their way over to the merch tables where Redacted took just a second to give his lady a little smooch, but then again so did Mickey. Back in the ring, things got serious after Redacted landed his frog splash as well as this cannonball in the corner through a pane of glass. It looked to be over after hitting a curb stomp in the middle of the ring, but Mickey somehow shot her shoulder up at one. He added some light tubes, but that only put her down for a count of 2. She grabbed onto her battle axe, looking to decapitate the Doc, but he ducked under the swing, rolling her up for the count of 3. So with Dr. Redacted advancing past Mickey Knuckles, we're on to match number 2, where Yanni GQ Llanos took on ICW's world champion and last year's winner of the Insane 8, Eric Dillinger. Wow, what a start to this match. Dillinger caught Yanni by surprise with a light tube bundle, drove him into one light tube Eiffel Tower, and then powerbombed him through the other. Yanni wouldn't be steamrolled in this match though, because he caught Dillinger with a nice looking super kick as well as this nice looking haluva kick in the corner. But that would not save him from this coast to coast from Dillinger, just shattering glass everywhere. Yanni would then try to hit this cutter onto some tubes, but had that reversed on him. And speaking of reversals, Dillinger went for a tilt-a-whirl slam, but Yanni brought him down head first with a DDT. The end came though when Eric Dillinger pulled Yanni off the top rope with a package pile driver through a bundle of tubes. Really great first match here. Eric Dillinger remains undefeated in Insane 8 competition. The machete-wielding carnivore Remington Roar was out next to take on everybody's favorite honey badger, Neil Diamond Cutter. I don't think I've ever seen a pizza cutter board before, but after this match, I don't think Neil wants to see one ever again. Not really sure what Neil was thinking here trying to out-muscle Roar, but needless to say, it did not work. He did, however, show that strength is not everything, but skewers kinda are. The staple gun and dollar bills were brought out, and as soon as Neil had a dollar stapled to his tongue, I had the same reaction as this lady right here. The stalling vertical suplex was a thing of beauty as glass and bodies went flying. And this was about time in the match where Roar just started chucking his opponent all over the ring. Never fear though, the Honey Badger always has a few tricks up his sleeve and a dive to make things right. The 2021 Insane 8 winner, Neil Diamond Cutter, gets the win, moving on to the next round after yet another damn good match. In the final match in the first round, Brew Baker would have his hands full with a 2-time Insane 8 winner and the man who has more wins than anybody else in Insane 8 competition. That man is Orn Veit.
Anybody can do this shit!
Brew Baker looked to be out to avoid the deathmatch aspect of this tournament, and judging by these skewers, this TV, this light tube bundle, these pizza pans, this fork baseball bat, and even this cookie sheet, I think it's safe to say that he failed. He did get in one nice looking enziguri, but as you would imagine, in the end, Orn Veit took that victory. In all honesty though, this was a very entertaining match, and I think it did add a lot to the tournament. On to the second round we go, where Dr. Redacted would meet Neil Diamond Cutter in the semifinals. At the very sound of the bell, Neil missed a spear going headfirst into a pane of glass. And then right after that, Redacted missed a cannonball, sending himself through another pane of glass. I should probably point out that this was a best of 5 panes of glass match, but neither one of those counted because they didn't put their opponent through the glass. But this right here certainly counted, as Neil drove Redacted through the pane of glass in the corner. Just when the Doc thought he countered Neil, he was then powerbombed through a second pane of glass, making the score 2-0 in Neil's favor. It didn't take too long though for Redacted to get on the board with this DVD, leaving him down by only 1. Then literally 10 seconds later, he tied it up with a second Death Valley driver. With only 1 pane of glass left to go, they each fought up to the middle rope, jockeying for position, but it would be Redacted who put Neil Diamond Cutter through the glass with a cutter of his own. Dr. Redacted is headed to the finals. To see who he would face, Orin Veidt came out next to take on Eric Dillinger, but sadly it was announced that Eric Dillinger suffered an injury and was rushed to the hospital. So that means Tommy Trainwreck would come out to replace him in the second round contest. A gusset plate got plenty of blood flowing as Orin began to just dominate Eric's replacement. Headshot after headshot, you could see Tommy's soul just leaving his body. There was a piss jug might chant as Veidt scooped Trainwreck up onto his shoulders and gave him a DVD through a door like it was nothing. Not looking to let up, Orin hit a double stomp through glass directly onto Tommy, but he just shot up at the count of 1. It was now time for Tommy to finally get some offense in, but Orin made sure that that was not about to happen and slung Tommy into a light tube door. Finally, Tommy Trainwreck got a move in, and it looked like for 1 second he was about to pull off this upset comeback. Well, that was until Orin once again showed off his underrated strength, getting Tommy up onto his shoulders and walking over to the other side of the ring where he hit an assault driver to put him away. The Wizard King, Orin Veidt, finds his way to the finals after 2 pretty dominating wins to take on the murder surgeon, Dr. Redacted. And just look at this, showing off that strength yet again, Veidt just casually walks around holding Redacted up before bringing him down in the middle of the ring. As they fought outside of the ring though, they found their way over to a barbed wire trampoline with a scaffold just conveniently parked next to it. Redacted placed Orin onto the trampoline and then climbed up to the top of the scaffold, calling for his trademark trash can. He then blindly leapt off, but Orin was nowhere to be seen, leaving Redacted smashed through the door and panes of glass. Oh, and yes, of course, let's not forget about the barbed wire. One day I think he's going to learn that trash can is just never a good idea. Maybe. Orin carried Redacted's lifeless body back to the ring, and with things looking pretty bad, Redacted ate another pane of glass. Facing an assault driver and most likely the end of this tournament for him, he countered it by starting a string of pin attempts. With no luck there, Redacted put Orin through a door with a Saito suplex and then quickly hit his frog splash. Redacted locked in a crossface, but knowing that that would not be enough, he smashed Veidt's head into a tube and then grabbed a barbed wire cricket bat. Or at least I think that was a cricket bat, but refusing to tap out, Orin Veidt just passed out, meaning that Dr. Redacted is your 2023 Insane 8 winner. This marks his second Deathmatch Tournament win of the year and quite the debut in ICW. He left Wisconsin with the Insane 8 title by his side. Held on July 29th, but airing on August 20th, Absolute Intense Wrestling held their second Bill Alfonso Hardcore Tournament. Getting things started in round number 1, we had a tag team specialist. We're talking Chuck Stone take on a man who has held pretty much every title in AIW, the Intense Icon, Joshua Bishop. Bishop introduced Stone to some popper bats to get things going. We had some chairs completely ruined with a nice spine buster here, a wild shot to Chuck's head, and then this fisherman suplex as well. A door was also taken out after this cannonball senton from Stone. We were in for a big time upset here right out of the gate when Chuck Stone low-blowed Bishop and wildly tried hitting his Burger Time slam into some chairs. But hey, it was enough to pick up the win apparently, meaning Chuck Stone advances over Bishop. The next match would pit the final girl, Ziggy Haim, against Dominic Garrini. Ziggy started things off with a bang, drilling Dominic with a water jug several times, followed by a bottle cap bat, and then shattered a large container over his head. She looked to be trying to end things early, but eventually her steam would run out as she just got tossed through a door bridge. After taking several brutal sounding chops and a stiff kick to the face, Ziggy slung Dominic out of the ring with a satellite head scissors through a door. After a leg drop from the middle rope, Ziggy introduced tons of thumbtacks to the match by bulldogging Dominic face first into him. Things came to an end after Ziggy was folded in half onto these thumbtacks and Dom shoved him into her mouth before delivering a devastating knee, followed by one final brainbuster. 1, 2, 3, Dominic Garrini advances. Next up, we had John Wayne Murdoch make his AIW debut, coming out first to take on a returning Tim Donst. These guys brawled out among the fans for the majority of this match, and that's where Murdoch decided to have himself a little Timmy taste test. Once back in the ring, Donst just about impaled Murdoch onto forks with a back body drop here. Then we had a double clothesline, sending both men down into the tacks, where they would pull out a pair of thumbtack bats and began just trading headshots. Murdoch dished out a couple of hard slaps, firing Donst up, but Murdoch was able to evade his cutter here. He then gave him a brainbuster down onto the chair, bringing this bloody battle to an end. That means John Wayne Murdoch will move on to the final round. And now for the last match in the first round, we had last year's winner of the Bill Alfonso Hardcore Tournament. We're talking Kaplan. He would go one-on-one with Mance Warner. I did not anticipate a 20-minute plus match in the opening round, but these guys were out here looking to kill each other, or at least rip one of their tongues out. This had to be one of the hardest hitting matches in round number 1, between the punches, chair shots, lariats, headbutts, table hits, chair shots, kicks, ring post attacks, chair shots. They were out here for broken bones, or at the very least concussions. And Skewers made a little cameo here as well. Kaplan hit a nice suplex through a door onto Mance, but then bit it hard when he missed this senton going through a door, falling to the outside. That wouldn't deter Kaplan from going to the top one more time to go for a split-legged moonsault onto a chair and Mance Warner. He hit just enough to score the 3 count, meaning that Kaplan finds himself in the finals 2 years in a row. And now on to those finals where we have a 4-way elimination match, which would be reffed by Bill Alfonso himself. Your finalists are Chuck Stone, Dominic Garrini, John Wayne Murdoch, and last but not least, Kaplan. Chaos erupted early as Kaplan dove out of the ring into all of his opponents. With everything going on in this match, even the production team had a hard time following the action. Garrini delivered a couple stiff kicks to the chest of Murdoch, then brought him down hard with a Saito suplex to score an upset elimination. With Murdoch gone, there was a 3-way door standoff, with each guy getting their heads just crushed in. They traded in those doors though for exploding totes. But I think this chair shot right here may have finally turned Kaplan's lights out. Chuck Stone then hit his Burger Time Slam onto a barbed wire chair to eliminate Dom from the finals. Down to just Kaplan and Chuck Stone, one of these men will leave with the Bill Alfonso Hardcore Tournament Championship. After several more hard-hitting shots, Stone was able to catch Kaplan going up to the top rope and carried him all the way across the ring, powerbombing him through a door. That would be it. Alfonso would count to 3, and after 2 major upsets, Chuck Stone is your second Bill Alfonso tournament winner. He celebrated the only way he knew how, by busting up Fonzie. On September 1st, Circle 6 held their first ever deathmatch tournament, calling it Sickest of the Six. It took place at Reggie's in Chicago and was streamed live for free on their YouTube channel. You simply can't beat that. The first match of the tournament saw Declan Grant face off against Dale Patricks in a barbed wire warfare match. Things started off with a little chain wrestling, and then it quickly escalated to ultra violence with some back and forth light tube headshots. And we saw a lot more than just barbed wire in this one. When it came to that barbed wire though, Declan targeted Dale's leg and just did not let up. Taking even more of an advantage, Declan would low blow Patricks before driving him down through a barbed wire board. Finally slipping up, Declan missed a splash from the top rope and took a light tube bundle to the head as punishment. A limpy Dale Patrick then sent Declan through another bundle with a big choke slam to get the win. Dale Patricks advances to the second round, but just like during the Asylum Deathmatch Tournament earlier this year, he will be dealing with a hurt knee. Next up, we have a painkiller match between Oren Veit and the Death Fighter, Akira. This match also started out with some technical wrestling, which I just love to see. Oren was the first to taste glass as he was just chucked into a pane set up in the corner. After a couple headshots from Akira, he would set up a pane of glass onto some chairs, but his plan backfired when Oren shot him up with a military press, letting gravity do his bidding. Now on the ropes, literally, Veit would send Akira crashing through more glass in the corner. Later, Akira countered Veit by body slamming him onto some chairs and then finished him off by sacrificing his own body, hitting a senton from the top rope. He picked up the 3-count victory, and Akira will be moving on to the second round. For the final match in the first round, Otis Kogar came to the ring to take on Remington Roar in a blunt force trauma match. As you will see, that stipulation would turn out to be very fitting. Even at the beginning, we got brutal-looking punches from these two. Otis would pull out a razor, threatening to cut Roar up, but Roar showed him that size is everything with his machete. After the blood got flowing, Otis would take his time to set up some chairs, only for Roar to power slam him through them. Seeing how well that worked out, Roar created a pile of chairs and light tubes, only for Otis to superplex him down onto him. Then the trauma came with this devastating chair shot. Just take a listen.
Jesus fuck! Oh fuck! Somebody call the fucking morgue! Fuck! That's gotta be it! That has to be it!
Yeah, Otis Kogar moves on to the next round. One of the unique things about this tournament is we would get a last chance match between all the guys who lost in the first round, giving them one more opportunity to win this thing. What we didn't expect, though, is Tommy Vendetta entering this match as a fourth wild card participant. I mean, that seems a little unfair, right? But judging by his shirt, I think TOV doesn't mind pissing some people off. And just as expected, he was triple teamed in the beginning. Looking to cut all the corners, Tommy would even get some low blows in as well. Then deep into the match, we would get this four-way light tube trade-off, seeing everybody get in on the action. Roar and Declan would get knocked out of the ring, leaving just Vite and Vendetta. It looked like Oren was going to deliver maybe a DVD from the top rope, but Tommy countered it with this beautiful-looking DDT onto some chairs, allowing him to pick up the win. That means Tommy Vendetta, who wasn't even originally scheduled to be in this tournament, finds himself moving on to the second round. And in that second round, Dale Patricks came out to be chained to his opponent Otis Kogar in a dog collar match. Otis would quickly target the hurt knee of Patricks by pounding some chains into it. And if that wasn't enough, he would then ram a gusset plate into his knee as well. Pulling out his razor again, we watched as he cut into Patrick's forehead and then carved away at his mouth. Taking a ton of punishment in this one, Patricks was then whipped like a dog. He did manage to get a couple shots in here and there, but Otis went back right on the offense. The match took a big turn, though, when Otis was pulled off the top rope, sending him into a trash can. Dale was able to get the big man up for a monster chokeslam onto some light tubes to steal the victory. Bum knee and all, Dale Patricks makes it to the final round. Akira would be up next to take on Tommy Vendetta. I like how Akira would mix in some submissions with ultra violence, looking to end the match early. Tommy would try to take refuge on the outside of the ring, but took a 619 to the side of the head instead. Speaking of the outside of the ring, Vendetta also ate a rough-looking body slam onto a brick bench. Back in the ring, Tommy looked to take home the win with his pile driver onto some light tubes, but Akira kicked out at the very last second. Akira was out there putting on a clinic in this one with some impressive moves on a Tommy, including this suplex from the turnbuckle. Looking to close things out himself, Akira grabbed a big bundle of tubes and landed another big senton. He covered Tommy as the ref counted to 3, and the finals are set. We have Akira. We have Dale Patricks. We have exposed boards. And we have Drake Younger as a special referee. Who do you think was first to receive a blast from some light tubes? If you guessed Drake Younger, you are correct. With the ref down, the match had to continue. Dale was still suffering from that hurt knee, and he would once again take the brunt of the damage here. Drake would finally get up and attack the fill-in referee just for helping out. Then we got this awkward moment between Drake and Akira. More on that in a minute, because they would fight all over the arena here, and even after taking all of that damage, Dale wasn't done just yet. He would put Akira through a chair with his trademark chokeslam, but shockingly, Akira kicked out. Dale decided he was going to carve Akira up with a broken tube, but then Akira countered just by eating it out of his hand. We would go on to see some more high-impact moves here, leading to false finishes, but then Akira cleaned Patrick's clock and drove him down onto the boards with a butterfly DDT. Drake Younger counted to 3, and this brutal tournament has come to a close. Akira wins, becoming the sickest of the 6, and then he flipped off Drake, giving us one more little awkward moment between the two. Awesome tournament debut for Circle 6 here, and what a great performance from Akira all the way through to the end. September 8th saw Horror Slam host the Murder City Deathmatch Cup 2. Real quick, I want to thank Hardcam Frio for all the footage you're about to see. Go seek him out on YouTube. In the opening round, Chuck Stein would go toe-to-toe with a red-hot Tommy Vendetta, who has been lighting the scene on fire lately. Maybe it was the crowd getting to him, or maybe it was Chuck just being on his A-game here, but Vendetta seemed to get bested around each and every turn in this match. At one point, Tommy ripped Chuck's shirt off and drove him through a door with his backpack senton. Then, just to drive the fans a little more into a frenzy, he put Chuck's shirt on over top of his own. Still too distracted with pissing the crowd off, Chuck countered Tommy's signature pile driver with a cover, catching him by surprise for the 3 count. Chuck Stein takes it over Vendetta. All right, 2 crazy SOBs were up next, with Schlack taking on Crazy King. As King was stabbing Schlack in the head with a light tube, Schlack just voluntarily started chopping down on some glass. Then we got some of the hardest looking chair shots of the entire night. These poor chairs just never stood a chance with these two. I mean, dear God. Crazy King powered Schlack up onto his shoulders and hit a part DVD, part Samoan drop through a table straight down to the floor. The human meat grinder was A-okay though, as he drove a bundle of light tubes straight through the chest of his opponent. King refused to stay down from that, but was soon put down for good with this sit-out powerbomb. Great effort here from Crazy King, but it is Schlack who advances to the next round. Another Tommy was up next as Tommy Trainwreck would try his best to advance over Shane Mercer. Things started off with a lot of stiff shots from both competitors, with nobody really getting the clear advantage here. Well, that is until Mercer lifted Tommy up and drove him back first through a barbed wire wooden ladder. Keeping up with that momentum, Mercer quickly suplexed Trainwreck through a barbed wire board in the opposite corner. In a bit of a scary moment here, Trainwreck would go to give Mercer a sidewalk slam onto this barbed wire contraption and just missed impaling him onto a piece of wood that was sticking up. Mercer had his speed, agility, and of course his strength on full display in this one. All of those attributes though can fail you when you get DVD'd through a barbed wire door. Luckily, Mercer also had plenty of determination because he battled back to shoot Tommy up onto his shoulders and bring him down directly onto this barbed wire webbing to take the win. Up next, the Horror Slam Deathmatch champion DBA put his title and his deathmatch career all on the line against his son, Malcolm Monroe III. With everything he had on the line, DBA utilized guitar shots, power bombs onto televisions, staples into the head, arm, and groin. With clotheslines and brainbusters like this, it looked like DBA was well on his way to retaining. He even chucked MM3 through a wooden board here and then landed his trademark burning elbow from the top rope, but none of that kept his son down. All it would take was for MM3 to land a perfectly placed kick, followed by some chloroform with his dad's bandana to make him fade away. MM3 was able to easily hit a double underhook powerbomb and get the win. That means Malcolm Monroe III wins the title, ends his dad's deathmatch career, and advances to the next round. Finishing up round one, we have a triple threat match between the Horror Slam heavyweight champion Jeff King, John Wayne Murdoch, and Remington Roar. More perfectly good guitars were ruined in this match as Murdoch took control early. King just about shattered his tailbone here with this major miss off the middle rope through a chair and cinder block. Speaking of missing with cinder blocks, Roar cost himself big with this missed flying headbutt. And if you ask me, I think the cinder blocks were the only winners of this match. Murdoch got a little too cocky and opened himself up for some 2-on-1 action. I'm talking several light tube shots, a cradle breaker here, and a massive lariat. John Wayne Murdoch was pinned by both of his opponents, 1, 2, 3, and that means both Roar and Jeff King will be advancing to the next round. Real quick, I hate to do this, but there is unfortunately no footage of the second round of the Murder City Deathmatch Cup 2. Thank you so much for Hardcam Frio for the footage that you are watching for the first round. We do have the finals coming up, but the second round, we don't have any footage of it. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so it drives me nuts that there's no footage of it, but I scoured the internet. There were 2 triple threat matches in the second round. First, Malcolm Monroe III defeated Remington Roar and Shane Mercer. Then we had Chuck Stein advance to the finals after beating Jeff King and Schlack. So there you go. Those are your 2 finalists. We do have footage of that. Let's get to it now. So in the finals, Malcolm Monroe III wanted to up the stakes, so he put his newly won deathmatch title on the line, as well as the Murder City Deathmatch Cup. And obviously, Chuck Stein was happy to take that offer. They had to be running on fumes at this point, but that did not stop from them giving it their all, with light tubes flying everywhere. These gusset plays surely did not feel good, but neither were MM3's lethal kicks. We had some good old cacti involved in this final round match, as well as, oh yeah, needles. And not just 1 or 2 syringes either. Chuck put 3 into Malcolm's arm and then took 3 directly into his own hand. Left with just 1 hand to defend himself, Chuck pulled a huge counter off the top rope, sending MM3 crashing down through boards and light tubes. It would be enough to keep Malcolm down for the 3 count. Chuck Stein wins the Murder City Deathmatch Cup 2 and becomes the new Horror Slam Deathmatch champion in the process. PRIMOS Premier Pro Wrestling held its 14th Slave to the Deathmatch Tournament over 2 nights on September 16th and 17th. All round 1 matches will see tag team death matches, with the winning team moving on to face each other in round number 2. Kicking off the tournament, Neil Diamond Cutter joined forces with Tyra Rusumi to take on Johnny Crash and his teammate Roland Doobie. Both Doobie and Crash were put through barbed wire doors as Neil and Tyra went on to dominate this opening round match. Tyra planted Doobie down with a tornado DDT as Neil finished him off with his Honey Badger Splash to take that win. Next up, the slave to the deathmatch veteran and winner of the 7th tournament, Mosh Pit Mike, joined forces with Ruby Flyer. Their opponents would be Uncivil Satu Jin and Jimmy Chondo Lion. Pinatas were brought into this match, and there was a very interesting use of a large crayon here. For the most part, though, this ended up being another one-sided beatdown, with Jin and Lion dishing out all of the punishment. Ruby and Mike's teamwork was completely non-existent here, and late into the match, Ruby just straight up cracked his partner in the head with a chair. That led to Chondo double stomping the door with light tubes and then pinning Mosh Pit Mike to get the win. Niles Blood won a gauntlet match to earn the final spot in the tournament, joining up with Brokeback Billy. They faced off against XJ Chaos and Mickey Knuckles. Knuckles would take Niles to task on the outside of the cage, aka the murder box, and then came back in to take Billy's head off. XJ Chaos did take part in this match. He had some strikes here and there and here and there. It was Mickey Knuckles, though, who steered her team to victory with her pump handle slam, sandwiching Billy. That would be enough to snag the 3-count victory. For the final tag match in round number 1, Chuck Stein came out next to team up with Dr. Redacted. Their opponents would be Aiden Blackheart and the Slave to the Deathmatch 8 winner, JD Horror. This match was just pure chaos, with light tubes flying everywhere, blood pouring from everyone, fans being put in danger, Redacted launching his body everywhere, syringes being shoved through necks. Yeah, it was that kind of a match. Thick panes of glass were used as well, one on Redacted in the corner and the other Stein used as a surprise attack on Blackheart. JD Horror would put Chuck through a door and a light tube with a Falcon Arrow, and then the end came when Blackheart delivered a flying elbow from the cage onto Chuck Stein. That would be it. Aiden Blackheart, JD Horror pick up the win, advancing to the 2nd round. For round number 2, Ruby Flyer won a second chance match to take on the 2 guys who beat him in the 1st round, Jimmy Chondo Lion and Satu Jin. Ruby got more offense here in the first 10 seconds than he did all of the 1st round, but Satu Jin picked up a couple strikes as he drove bowling balls right into his opponent's crotches. Chondo's bare feet came into play with a drop kick, sending Jin through a door and then a double stomp onto some tubes. Looking to seal the deal, Jimmy grabbed a weed whacker, but Jin put a stop to that real quick. Jin rammed the weed whacker into Jimmy's gut and then finished him off with a rock bottom. Satu Jin advances to the final round. Tyra Rusumi was up next to take on her partner from the 1st round, Neil Diamond Cutter. This match saw a lot of light tubes used, where some broke and others didn't even come close. You know what, for it being Neil's birthday, he sure did receive his birthday money in a pretty weird way. With everything else being used in this match, I'm talking tacks, staples, tubes, doors. Of course, we got a kitchen sink in there as well. It would be one major Honey Badger splash from the top of the cage, though, that would secure the victory for Neil Diamond Cutter, sending their birthday boy to the final round. I did not expect XJ Chaos to get the most boos out of everybody else in this tournament, but the Colorado crowd were not down with the Deathmatch Juggalo. And sure, it didn't help that his opponent was a fan favorite, Mickey Knuckles. I love how this fight went out through the crowd, and as they approached the bar area, Mickey ordered a shot, took her shot mid-match only to spit it out in XJ's face. Chaos went for a couple high-risk moves that some worked out in his favor while others didn't. Mickey would plant XJ through a door in the corner, covering him for that 3-count, meaning that she finds herself heading to the final round. In the last match of round number 2, Aiden Blackheart went one-on-one with JD Horror. And wow, these two came out to beat the hell out of one another. They started with these porcupine-looking weapons and went to light tubes, then exploding bats, and yes, a flaming master sword. Yeah, you can't make this up, folks. And there would be more fire because Blackheart would drive JD through a burning door. Aiden was almost impaled on this bucket of spikes, but he still found a way to kick out. There was one last bit of fire here with a table that wouldn't break. JD Horror did pick up that win, heading to the finals yet again. And it is time for those 4-way finals. We have Satu Jin, Mickey Knuckles, Neil Diamond Cutter, and JD Horror. There was a lot going on here, including electrified light tubes. Jin and JD brawled out into the crowd, leaving Mickey and Neil to fight it out in the murder box. Then they would switch it up with JD being buried by street signs in the cage as Neil and Jin fought their way out into the fans. The Honey Badger would find some time to fly as the match started to come to an end. A shotgun kick from Mickey would take the original ref out of commission. Jin would pancake Neil, JD would take Jin's head off, and then Mickey would slam JD through a door in the corner, sitting on his face to get that win. Ladies and gentlemen, Mickey Knuckles takes the victory, becoming the 14th slave to the Deathmatch Tournament winner. Combat Zone Wrestling hit a major milestone this month when it hosted its 20th Tournament of Death on October 7th. Kicking off the first round, last year's winner Bobby Beverly took on Eric Dillinger, who was making his CZW debut. And he got things started off hot with a suicide dive, followed immediately by a plancha to the outside, wiping the Bev out. There were a ton of light tube shots here, most to the head, but also to the knees, chest, and back. And at times it looked like last year's winner looked to be having a little too much fun out there. There was a good mix of ultra violence, high flying, brawling, and good old-fashioned technical wrestling. They would go on to trade suplexes on the chairs and light tubes, looking to advance to the next round. But only one man would be able to do that, and after this fisherman suplex through a pane of glass in the corner, that man would be Bobby Beverly. Dillinger didn't leave completely empty-handed, though. He got a nice little "please come back" chant from the fans. Next up, last year's TOD runner-up, Mickey Knuckles, took on a last-minute replacement here, Otis Kogar. This match saw the widest variety of weapons in the whole tournament, including a thumbtack water jug, a barbed wire crutch, barbed wire flamingos, light tubes of course, boards of course, kendo sticks, a thumbtack unicorn, just a straight razor, trash cans, thumbtack Nerf darts, a thumbtack flesh, I don't even know if I can say this on YouTube, thumbtack bats, barbed wire doors, chairs, and of course, Kenzans. And after all of that, Mickey locked in a submission to choke Otis out, sending her to the finals. Eric Ryan made his Tournament of Death debut, taking on Schlack, who has yet to score a TOD victory in his career. There were plenty of terracotta plants used in this match, much to Schlack's displeasure, and I'm sure Ryan didn't enjoy them too much either. While we saw shotgun kicks into panes of glass, we also got a solid amount of technical wrestling here. And then at one point, we almost got a solid minute of Schlack brutalizing Eric Ryan with light tubes. That was about the time Schlack started to dominate things, if you couldn't tell. Somehow this powerbomb through a pane of glass wasn't enough to put Eric Ryan away. It would take one final diving clothesline to get that job done. So Schlack picks up his first ever TOD win as he moves on to the next round. In the final first round match, we got yet another CZW debut in Judge Joe Dredd, who had to take on his rival at this point in the deathmatch scene, Big Effin' Joe. This match ended up being the longest of the entire tournament, going over that 20-minute mark. And you'll see why, because these two brawled all over the ringside area, hitting each other with everything they could get their hands on. They even found their way over to this bus where Dredd was catapulted into it. Back near the ringside area, these two delivered, with Joe hitting a cannonball onto Dredd through a light tube board, and he drove a wall of forks into his back and then used two coat hangers to rearrange his face. And I'll take those coat hangers any day over a couple of sickles. Eventually, Dredd would get some offense in here with some light tube shots and a running cannonball of his own, and a belly-to-back suplex onto a guardrail. As this match went on, doors were not very nice to Dredd, that's for sure. And hey, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this lemon golden shower was not as pleasant as it smelled. Now, I wonder if raw chickens to open wounds is a bad thing. I don't know. It probably is. The ending to this match saw Judge Joe Dredd beaten to a bloody pulp. In fact, the beatdown was so bad that the ref jumped in, calling for the bell. That means Big Effin' Joe takes the win via referee stoppage. We would have some history made here at TOD 20 because for the first time in TOD history, the tournament would only be 2 rounds long, because next up would be a 4-way finals. We're talking Bobby Beverly, Mickey Knuckles, Schlack, and Big Effin' Joe. They would all get their shot at this year's trophy. The boards would be exposed in the ring, and the ropes would be replaced with exploding barbed wire. More on that in a minute, by the way. Just a quick summary of this match: pure chaos. Bodies were flying everywhere and through everything. Oh my god, poor Mickey. She just kept eating light tubes left and right, and Schlack seemed hell-bent on ripping her arm off. Honestly, by the end of this thing, I think she took more damage than anybody else involved here. I feel like I have to point out how many wild wild light tube shots were just thrown around in this match. Usually you can count on one, maybe two, but dear lord, these four were out here trying to murder each other. I mean, I know, it's kind of the point, I get it. And I just love how during all this ultra violence, Mickey turned a hot dog around on Joe, shoving it down his throat. After Schlack and Beverly nearly killed each other with all of these light tube shots, it was time for the explosions. Sadly, the first explosion wasn't really caught on camera when Schlack and the Bev slammed into the barbed wire ropes. Then Mickey and Joe traded exploding baseball bat shots, nearly burning them alive. That wouldn't be the end though, because Joe would sling Mickey into the other exploding barbed wire ropes. With Beverly and Schlack pretty much taken out of the match, Joe hit one last DVD to pick up the win. Looking at the slow-mo replay, it does appear that Mickey got her shoulder up just in time, but the ref's ruling is final. Big effing Joe wins Tournament of Death 20, making this his first Deathmatch Tournament win inside the United States. IWA Deep South were back for their 13th installment of the Carnage Cup, and that took place on October 21st. Round 1 would consist of 4 triple threat matches with only one person being eliminated. First up would be Little Sicko versus Brian White versus the Carnage Cup 10 winner, John Rare. Just getting the tournament started off, Little Sicko was nearly impaled on these gigantic skewers, and yeah, Brian took a fistful to the head as well. John Rare would light up some firecrackers on this light tube razor wire contraption, but he mistimed his jump, nearly getting himself killed in the process. There was this really weird moment where John Rare was walking around the outside of the ring, and he just started stabbing something into his own arm, and he opened himself up very badly. As if he hasn't suffered enough, there was another massive pile of firecrackers that were set off in the ring, and it looks like Rare was completely consumed by him. Brian White would get that pinfall, meaning that himself and Little Sicko would be moving on to the second round. Obey came out next to take on the Hardcore Hillbilly. Now, Hillbilly was caught up in these barbed wire ropes where Obey would light this massive line of firecrackers. We watched as Hardcore Hillbilly practically was burned alive here. Look at his skin. No clue how, but he continued the match. After a good while here, Blaine Evans entered the match late, getting this big advantage. The pun intended carnage continued with a Russian leg sweep into more razor wire. Blaine and Obey would hit a double suplex, sending Hillbilly into a kiddie pool of hell. They both would pin him, meaning they each move on to the second round. So next up, we would have the Carnage Cup 12 winner, Chewy Martinez, as he would go up against Sick Boy and Jay Blade. Blade ended up getting tossed all around in this match. Chewy was just having a good time in this one for sure. And Jay Blade was one that was not having a good time because he ended up getting DVD'd through a light tube log cabin. And if that wasn't enough to put him away, he was double teamed here by Chewy and Sick Boy, taking a doomsday device through another set of log cabins. And yep, that would be the end for Jay Blade. He would be eliminated here. In the final triple threat match in the first round, the Necro Butcher was taking part in his first Carnage Cup since the second one back in 2006, where he won the whole thing. He would be going up against Bryant Woods and Jimmy Controversy, who also joined this match late. Necro didn't seem to like Jimmy too much, I'm gonna be honest. And I guess neither did Bryant Woods for that matter. It seemed like every time Jimmy tried to get involved in the match, Necro or Woods would just swat him away. As this fight spilled out around the fans, Bryant really tore into his opponents. Jimmy Controversy tested the patience of Bryant Woods long enough until he was yeeted through a couple dozen light tubes to finally get himself eliminated. Necro and Bryant will move forward. Round 2 started with Little Sicko facing Obey. And the match itself was started with some submission attempts, but the panes of glass would soon be shattered. Little Sicko would fly high with this nice moonsault, and after beating the hell out of one another, Sicko would finish Obey off with a beautiful Spanish fly through a pane of glass and, yeah, razor wire. Little Sicko heads to the finals as the suicidal beast Bryant Woods would walk down to the ring next to take on Blaine Evans. Blaine realized the best way to take on a tank of a man like Bryant Woods would be to target his legs. After taking a ton of punishment, enough would be enough, and Woods would turn the tide with a big power slam through a light tube crucifix. A 3 count later, and Bryant Woods finds himself in the finals of the Carnage Cup for a third time. In the next match, Chewy Martinez went one-on-one with Brian White. And wow, this would be a complete one-sided beatdown where Chewy basically used one hand for most of this match. I'm not kidding. I mean, look at this. I don't quite know what this was. Maybe hot oil or hot wax? I'm not sure. They said it was like rubbing alcohol and lemon juice in commentary. I don't know about that. But either way, it left Bryan screaming for his life. Whatever it was, it put an end to the match. Chewy would pin him in just over 5 minutes, sending Bryan White running off for some help. In the final second round match, Necro Butcher went to war with Sick Boy. From the start, these light tubes would cut Butcher's back open pretty bad. And then Necro would once again take his opponent for a little stroll around the fans, brawling all over the place. It seemed like anytime Necro was about to leave his feet, he would be able to reverse it and punish Sick Boy for even trying. Eventually, he would be able to latch on to Sick Boy with his Asionic spike to force Sick Boy to tap out. The finals were set, and with the sun coming down, cart headlights were used as well as flashlights so we could see what was going on in the ring. The finals consisted of the Necro Butcher, Little Sicko, Bryant Woods, and Chewy Martinez. And this would be elimination rules here, people. There was a lot of chaos going on here in the ring for the whole first part of this match. I mean, look at this. Light tubes and blood were just flying everywhere. Little Sicko took the fight to Necro on the outside of the ring, while Bryant Woods would toss Chewy off the ring apron through light tubes, carpet strips, and a barbed wire board. That would mark the first elimination of this match, meaning that Chewy would not be winning the Carnage Cup back-to-back. Just about a minute later, Bryant Woods would make his second elimination by laying Necro out with a lariat. We are now down to just Little Sicko and Bryant Woods. You could see a little bit of a size advantage here. Yeah, Little Sicko would be in for a world of hurt while Woods began to just overpower him with ease. After the slam, Woods even pinned Sicko, but then called for the match to start over for some reason. When the match continued, he nearly killed Little Sicko in that ring. They would then climb to the top of this U-Haul truck where Bryant Woods would lift Sicko up and bring him crashing down through a huge light tube, glass, barbed wire, multi-layered contraption. Woods would crawl over and once again pin Little Sicko, this time putting an end to the 13th IWA Deep South Carnage Cup. After eliminating all 3 opponents here, Bryant Woods would finally bring home that Carnage Cup trophy. Hardcore Hustle organization held their 3rd Deathmatch Tournament of the year, Tremont's 4th installment of his Deathmatch Tournament. There would be 4 first-round matches, all fatal 4-ways, leading to one final fatal 4-way at the end. Getting things started off for the first match, we had Chris Bradley come out first to face off against Mouse, Neil Diamond Cutter, and Jimmy Chondo Lion. After trading carpet strip shots, Bradley used his size to his advantage here, looking like a monster out there. Chondo tried his best to put Mouse through a ladder, but not long after that, Neil would wrap himself around Chondo's leg and start driving staples into his bare feet. And look at Mouse, he just started gnawing away on that foot. And just in case you were wondering, yes, you got to see close-up footage of Jimmy pulling the staples out of his foot. Neil and Mouse took some bites out of one another before they both went flying through a door filled with debris. Bradley continued to showcase his strength, looking like the favorite to win here until Mouse would fight back, laid him out with one of these nasty combos here. Chondo swooped in to slam Mouse, but it would be Neil Diamond Cutter who would hit his trademark rolling DVD to secure the victory. For match number 2, Sean Campbell was making his H2O debut, taking on a returning Tim Donst in a red-hot Malcolm Monroe III and also an H2O veteran, Lucky 13. There were lots of speed and high-risk maneuvers broke out early in this one. Lucky 13 would continue to fly, but against his own will, into a door with Donst on the wrong end of things. Campbell hit a nice cactus elbow onto MM3 on the outside, but Malcolm later returned the favor with a brainbuster through a steel chair. Donst took this rough-looking powerbomb onto a chair, but that would be nothing compared to what Campbell would go through. Lucky 13 hit a Canadian Destroyer onto MM3 down onto Sean Campbell in light tubes. This just absolutely crushed Sean. Lucky 13 nabbed the 3-count victory to advance to the finals. Ron Bass Jr. was up next to go up against a debuting hardway heater, also H2O Hall of Famer Mickey Knuckles, and the current Danny Havoc Hardcore Champion, Bam Sullivan. Bam and Heater were foiled at the start, leading to stiff shots from Mickey and Ron. In fact, this was definitely the brawling match of round 1, seeing a ton of strikes from all of the competitors. Mickey would be first to taste glass by being launched face first into 2 bundles of light tubes. Meanwhile, Bam would be the first to taste wood with this fallaway slam. Bam tried to take the win with this spear, but Mickey came in with an unconventional yet effective pin breakup. Then Ron was about to hit this superplex onto Mickey 3 barbed wire door, but Heater and Bam hit him with a double powerbomb instead. Bam countered a light tube strike beautifully from Heater, but Mickey came from behind to lay Bam out with her trademark pump handle slam onto Ron, who was stuck under this door. So she would pin Ron Bass Jr. to take the win, moving her to join Neil Diamond Cutter and Lucky 13 in the finals. In the last match of the opening round, Christian Ross was up next, who actually won the 2nd Tremont Deathmatch Tournament with partner Chris Bradley. He would be going up against Danny DeMond Demonto, the long-sleeved, lovable psychopath Tommy Vendetta, and H2O's Hardcore Kingdom 5 winner, Declan Grant. So Danny tried talking everybody into doing this traditional tag team deathmatch here. I'm talking holding the tag team rope and everything, but you can probably guess that it didn't quite work out good for him. Business would eventually pick up with a huge barrage of light tube headshots. Ross would plant Declan down with the end of days, but took several chair shots from behind right afterwards. Now rocked, Ross would miss a dive into a door and would get driven down to the mat with Tommy's piledriver. At one point, Declan suffered a bad cut and had to get it taped up. Back in the ring, Demonto tried to put Tommy away with this diving elbow through a door and light tubes, but as he pinned Tommy, Atticus Kogar's music played, distracting Danny. As he looked over towards the entranceway, Declan rolled Danny up, surprising him with the win. So that means our TDMT4 finals are set. Bad cut and all, Declan Grant came down to the ring first to take on Mickey Knuckles, Lucky 13, and Neil Diamond Cutter. Mickey and Neil thought they outsmarted Lucky and Declan, but they got the last laugh. A lot would transpire here during this nearly 20-minute final match. Neil would hit this perfect spear on Lucky through a door. Mickey got a light tube to the behind. As she took another shot to the head, Neil got slammed right through this door. His forehead then welcomed a gusset plate. Lucky 13 wiped out a couple rows of chairs. Declan got in a spear of his own onto Mickey, sending her straight through a pane of glass. Neil would then introduce skewers into the match, first driving them into the head of Declan and then over to Mickey's. Neil took a rough-looking slam onto a chair and tubes, but somehow kicked out at 2. Then we would get this great set of rapid-fire moves and combos from everyone involved. Nothing was enough to take the win, though. That's when Jimmy Lyon decided to butt his nose into the match by coming out and attacking Neil from behind and then dragging him backstage. With Neil basically eliminated from this match and with everybody barely able to stand, they had one last light tube rally in the middle of the ring. Lucky took Declan out with a mushroom stomp, but it would be Mickey who would hit 2 of her pump handle slams. The second one being onto Declan Grant, who she pinned to win the match and the entire tournament. This marks Mickey Knuckles' second Deathmatch Tournament win in back-to-back months. That is an amazing accomplishment for your H2O Hall of Famer and your Tremont's Deathmatch Tournament 4 winner. To close out 2023, Game Changer Wrestling held their 8th Nick Gage Invitational in Atlantic City. We got a triple threat opening round match between Masha Slamovich, Emerson Jane, and Risa Sarah. With light tubes hanging above the ring, Sarah started things off by bashing some light tubes over the head of Jane and then suplexing Masha onto some more. Masha showed she wasn't playing around either with this body slam, headshot, and kick. We got some brutal exchanges from Masha and Jane midway through this match too. Jane would utilize a good mix of slams with her ultra violence, making her really stand out here in this match. There was a flurry of tube shots followed by Sarah showcasing her kendo stick skills, and then we had the staff hand Risa 2 huge light tube fans to use on her opponents. Slamovich would be able to connect with an air raid crash into the corner and then plant Jane down with the White Knight driver to pick up the win though. We got another triple threat match in the first round, this one between Broski Jimmy Lloyd, Jacob Fatu, and last year's NGI winner, John Wayne Murdoch. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Jacob Fatu really stole this match. He brought the speed, the high flying, the intensity, the strength, and most of all, the ultra violence. Murdoch and Jimmy both got caught up in the spiderweb of barbed wire after a Russian leg sweep. Lloyd would then later be sandwiched between 2 barbed wire doors, allowing Fatu to land a moonsault right on top of him. It would be Murdoch who would outsmart Fatu, moving out of the way, sending him crashing to the outside through a couple doors. He then quickly pulled Jimmy over to the corner to connect with his Deep South Destroyer to collect the 3 count and the victory. That gave me some flashbacks to their first round match back at Tournament of Death 18 in 2019. Now down to just one-on-one matches for the rest of the tournament, Shane Mercer came out to fill in for Daiju Wakamatsu, who had travel issues. He would be taking on Muedo Extremo. These two put on a really solid opening round match, seeing them both rip each other to shreds with Tokyo Towers. I swear to God, I talk about Mercer's impressive strength every time I watch him wrestle, but look at this, just military pressing Muedo with just one arm at one point. He's just insane. He used his trademark sharp whip thing to torture Muerto several times during this match. A shotgun dropkick into the corner brought Muerto right back into this match though, after being brutalized pretty much all the way through. That's when a light tube and carpet stripped log cabin was ushered into the middle of the ring as Muerto looked to make this big comeback. He would bring Shane off the turnbuckle, crashing down into the cabin with a gigantic power bomb to land him the win. In the final match of the first round, we were treated to the match that stole the tournament, in my opinion. It would be between Ciclope and Violento Jack. Jack jump-started this match, and these two were off to the races. There were so many ultra-violent moments here, I'm gonna just rapid-fire some of them off to you, just so you can get most of them. Ciclope was driven back first through a pane of glass with ornaments on him. Jack had his head curb-stomped down onto a skewer board, and then had his knee impaled with skewers after this cannonball in the corner. Jack then took a spine buster onto barbed wire, as well as a sidewalk slam through glass and cut soda cans onto the concrete floor. He then took this frog splash from Ciclope, rolled right through it, and hit a brain buster on him. Ciclope then nearly took Jack's head off with this shining wizard and then caved it in with a Canadian destroyer. Jack then drove Ciclope down onto some cut soda cans with a sit-out powerbomb. He busted an unopened bottle of Corona over Ciclope's head and then finished him off with a package pile driver. I know I just flew through this match, but you gotta believe me, it was a very, very good match here. But to me, one of the most impressive parts of the whole thing was the fact that Ciclope was able to keep his headphones on around his neck the entire time. So on to round two now. Masha Slamovich looked like a woman possessed coming to the ring to take on the Duke of Hardcore, John Wayne Murdoch. And wow, Masha beat the hell out of Murdoch for much of this match. And just as expected, Murdoch would break out some dirty tactics at points, but Masha stayed right in there with him, especially after dropping him back first onto these tubes. Masha tore away at his mouth using a sickle, and just when it looked like she was about to move on to the finals, she slipped up. She took a long time to get a door and panes of glass stacked up in the ring. That's where she used lighter fluid to light the door on fire. Murdoch easily countered with a Deep South Destroyer, sending her head first through it all. He would go on to pick up the win, sending himself to the finals back-to-back years. To see who would face him though, Violento Jack would take on a very pissed off Muerto Extremo. You see, Extremo didn't take too kindly to Jack attacking Ciclope after their first round match, so he did his best to dish out some payback. A power drill seemed to do the trick. Eventually though, Jack would take control of the drill and the match. Then just like in round one, Muerto Extremo began to take on a lot of damage. After falling behind yet again, the fans gave Muerto their full support, willing him on in this match. Oh, but Violento Jack made it clear he didn't care about what the fans wanted though. Jack landed a nice swanton bomb, but Muerto jumped right up, bringing Jack down with a tough German suplex. Ciclope would run down to the ring to get revenge on Jack, smashing a bottle of Corona over his head this time. That's where Muerto would climb up the ladder, hitting a big swanton of his own, and he got the 3 count. Muerto Extremo pulls off a shocking win, sending him to the finals. And to the finals we go. You know, a lot of people could have predicted John Wayne Murdoch to be here, but not a lot of fans predicted this. After 2 grueling come-from-behind wins, Muerto Extremo enters the finals with a full crowd rooting him on. All of this would be taking place in a glass ceiling 2.0 death match where these two immediately went for light tubes. They would actually clear an entire row of light tubes in just a matter of seconds. And then after starting to clear the other row of tubes, Muerto would set up a door bridge in the middle of the ring. Now while he was doing that, Murdoch climbed his way up to the top of the scaffold where Extremo soon followed. They jockeyed for position for a moment before Murdoch just chucked Muerto down through the glass ceiling, sending him crashing to the mat below. Now keep in mind, all of this took place just a couple minutes into the match. And I'd say that probably helped Muerto kick out because nobody expected him to shoot up after a 1 count. He would eat several more light tube bundles but seemed completely unfazed. He would plant Murdoch down with a Blue Thunder bomb, but he kicked out right at 1 as well. The intensity was electric as they just continued to destroy one another. Panes of glass were stacked up where Muerto drove Murdoch down through them with a power bomb. 1, 2, 3. Muerto Extremo wins the 8th Nick Gage Invitational. He was down early every single match, but fought his way back, winning the entire tournament. Afterwards, his partner Ciclope joined him in celebrating this huge win in his career as the crowd gave him all of their love. ICW No Holds Barred held their SPOs Battle of the Tough Guys 3, which was a 2-event tournament all taking place on December 30th. 16 competitors, 15 matches to cover. We need to jump right into it. Match 1 saw H2O Tag Team Champion Malcolm Monroe III taking on a GCW Tag Team Champion Kevin Koo. We got a crazy kick exchange, followed by a shoulder block exchange, followed by a strike exchange, followed by a door headshot exchange. Things were looking up for MM3 after driving Koo through some doors and bringing him down across this steel chair, but this counter suplex onto these chairs put an end to Malcolm's back and the match. Kevin Koo wins, moving on. Two guys who are very familiar with each other were up next when Christian Ross took on Chris Bradley. Bradley almost KO'd Ross right out of the gate with his chair shot. You know, in fact, chair luck was not on Ross's side in this one. Bradley got the worst of this cinder block collision and then took a DVD through a door, allowing Ross to pick up the victory. Some high-end grapplers were up next when Matt Mikowski took on Dominic Guarini. And just as expected, we saw a lot of grappling here. They did mix in some hard strikes with some high impact moves to keep one another on their toes though. They even broke out some gis at one point in the match. Guarini made a critical mistake by diving into this door with Mikowski on his back, but he ended up knocking himself loopy by going in head first. Mikowski was able to capitalize with a rear naked choke and then used his gi to just choke Guarini out. Matt Mikowski advances. Bojack would be coming out to the ring next to take on last year's Battle of the Tough Guys winner and the ICW American Deathmatch champion Hoodfoot. Now, Hoodfoot stated he wanted to defend his title throughout the entire tournament, so this would in fact be for the title. The champ struggled to get Bojack up for his Ghostbuster and took a bunch of punishment throughout this match because of it. After possibly getting concussed with these sign shots, Hoodfoot would outmaneuver Bojack, sending him flying through a door in the corner. After trying and failing all match to hit that Ghostbuster, Hoodfoot would finally be able to get his challenger up and planted him down to the mat to secure the win. Hoodfoot remains champion as he advances to the next round. Hardway Heater made his second Battle of the Tough Guys appearance, taking on Tommy Vendetta. I like how some of these cookie sheet shots had Vendetta doing his best Shaggy impression as he tried to maintain consciousness. Heater seemed to have his way with Tommy throughout this whole match here, but after pulling Hardway's shirt over his face, he was chucked into a door, and then Tommy pulled out his pile driver directly onto the H2O Tag Team title. So even after getting very little offense in, Tommy moves on to the next round. Next out, we would have Brandon Kirk taking on Colby Carino in the first round. And you know what? These two had one of the better matches in the entire tournament, seeing Carino flying all over the cage. Kirk was flying too, but not in a good way. Even with his unorthodox style, you can't expect to win after being body slammed onto cinder blocks. Then again, caving in your opponent's skull and sternum with said cinder blocks does have its advantages. Colby fell from the cage down through a door, but was still able to get up and land a Styles Clash onto a bed of chairs. And speaking of chairs, good God, Colby was almost impaled with this choke slam. Kirk then landed his Psycho Driver Fuck Your Life to get the win. A couple of AIW mainstays faced off in the next match as Kaplan took on Joshua Bishop. There was a bunch of chair shots in this one, as well as numerous clubbing blows, with neither man coming out on top. If those early chair shots weren't enough, they took turns just chucking steel chairs at one another. Bishop was able to power Kaplan up just enough to drop him on his head through a door. While that slam would not put it into the match, this one through the doors and chairs would. Kaplan takes the 3-count victory. In the final match of the opening round, Jaden Newman would try once again to take down the Killdozer, Matt Tremont. As Jaden stuck gusset plates into the head of the Killdozer, all he seemed to do was laugh it off. In fact, the more the Killdozer bled, the more he laughed. Jaden was not laughing though, as he took a high back body drop onto these thumbtacks. And Jaden knew that he had to hit a home run to get this win, so he went to town not only on Tremont's head, but his face with these thumbtack bat shots. He landed a kick and whipped the Killdozer down with this slam to pick up a bracket-busting shocker of a victory. So yeah, believe it or not, Jaden Newman advances past the Killdozer. It's time for round number 2. Hoodfoot will be putting his American Deathmatch title on the line again, This time, it would be against Christian Ross. The challenger would get a little bit of offense in, but Hoodfoot shook it off, delivering his Ghostbuster through a door to pick up a quick second round win. Matt Mikowski was tasked next to take on Jaden Newman. Mikowski blinded Jaden with a trash can, using it to dish out a ton of strikes, but that wouldn't keep him down for long. He hit a shotgun kick, sending Mikowski through a door, and then countered Matt with a lightning quick slam to take home the win, moving on to the third round. Brandon Kirk came out next to face the lovable psychopath, Tommy Vendetta. Kirk would counter the backpack cannonball, sending Tommy into the cage, but unlike his first round match, Tommy would be able to dish out a lot of punishment here. He hit his pile driver once, but then looked to hit it a second time onto a stack of chairs, but that would cost him dearly. Brandon hit a low blow on Tommy and brought him down head first through the chairs with a brutal looking psycho driver fuck your life. He wasn't done though, he chokeslammed Tommy onto the remaining chairs. Instead of pinning him right then and there, Kirk allowed Tommy to make a comeback, this time hitting a backpack pile driver through a door and then hitting two more of his pile drivers. As he went for that trifecta though, Kirk rolled him up, stealing the match with a 3-count victory. Kaplan would come out next to take on Kevin Koo. Koo would land some of those brutal strikes that he's known for, but if anybody can take a hit and keep on going, it's Kaplan. He slammed Koo into the cage with a fall-away slam, but it would be this powerful lariat that would actually put Kevin Koo away, in perhaps another upset in the tournament. Kaplan moves past Koo. We are now into round 3, and we are down to the final 4 tough guys in the tournament. Jaden Newman was out first to take on Brandon Kirk, who actually made it to the semifinals last year before losing to Hoodfoot. Jaden hit a tornado DDT using the side of the cage, and then he tried taking Brandon out quickly with that same snap slam that won him the previous 2 rounds, but Brandon kicked out. As Brandon took control, he connected with a DVD, but pulled Jaden off the mat before the 3, getting cocky. Kirk then went for the psycho driver, fuck your life, but Newman countered that with a small package, taking the 3 count. Jaden Newman has smashed any and all brackets out there as he moves on to the finals. Hoodfoot would be putting the American Deathmatch title on the line for a 3rd time in this tournament. This time it would be against Kaplan. It took less than 2 minutes for Hoodfoot to hit 2 Ghostbusters to take the win. So Hoodfoot makes it to the final round back-to-back years. This time he's going to be taking on Jaden Newman. Newman buried the champ under debris to start this match off. Looking to become that new champion, Jaden stuck gusset plates into the back of Hoodfoot's head and then stomped one down onto his hand. Gonna be honest here, things were not looking good for Hoodfoot to repeat. Even after coming close to passing out, Hoodfoot stuck in there and showed he has just enough left to get the job done. It would take a hard-hitting headbutt that took Jaden off his feet, and then Hoodfoot connected with that Ghostbuster to put him down for good. Hoodfoot takes the win, securing back-to-back Battle of the Tough Guy victories, and on top of that, he also defended his title 4 times in a single day in a single tournament. It does not get much tougher than that. On December 30th, Circle 6 hosted King of the Deathmatches 2023, becoming the 4th company to host a tournament by that same name. Starting the tournament off, we had a blunt force trauma match featuring AJ Gray and a very scary version of Otis Kogar. Blunt force trauma was right. I mean, listen to some of these shots.
Fired in by Gray. Taking it. Stenson took out his playing cast. Oh my fucking God!
Not only did we see skulls getting cracked, Otis was also slammed right onto this bed of cinder blocks as AJ was slammed down onto a set of chairs. AJ Gray showed his toughness even after being carved up with straight razors to wrap a chair around the throat of Otis and pull back on it, choking him out. With Otis's body being bent back like that, he was unable to breathe. As he went limp, the ref was forced to call for the bell, meaning AJ Gray will be moving on to round number 2. The Bev, Bobby Beverly, came out next to take on a man who almost severely injured him earlier this year, Mao. Beverly had a hard time keeping up with Mao's speed in this match, as Mao also did a good job adjusting to the ultraviolet setting that he's just not used to. The Bev brought Mao down through a chair with a suplex, but soon would take a scary-looking tiger driver through a whole group of chairs. You gotta give it up for Mao, though, who showed some innovative counters in this match. He did try to introduce skewers into this thing, but that backfired on him. He tried fighting back, looking to pull off an upset here, but in the end, a missed high-risk maneuver led to a series of events which would lead to the downfall of Mao. Beverly hit that fisherman's DDT on the tubes to get the 3 count. Great effort here from Al, but the Bev advances. Dale Patricks came out looking to handle business in the next match, while his opponent Nate Webb came out singing and dancing with the fans. I don't know about you, but I don't think Dale appreciated that very much. They didn't waste time getting to the glass as both guys took shots at one another. Now, Webb was laid across a table in the ring as Dale started to scale a ladder set up beside him. Webb would jump off the table, shoving the ladder over, sending Dale flying outside of the ring, crashing through 2 other tables. Webb got Patricks back in the ring and climbed the ladder himself, hitting a frog splash, but it wouldn't be enough. He tried going for another high-risk move, but this time Patricks got his feet up, countering a moonsault. Patricks would capitalize with a Tiger Driver to take the win, moving him on to the next round. A dog collar match was on tap as Orin Veidt would be tethered to Adam Priest. Now, Priest is not very versed in the deathmatch world. You can tell because he tried his best to stay away from Veidt, who would just beat on him throughout this match. I mean, even a trash can lid almost seemed to knock Priest out. Now, that being said, Priest did have a genius counter to an assault driver by pulling the chain into the eyes of Veidt. With Orin laying on the ring apron, Priest would be perched on the top rope. Not a good place to be when you're connected to your opponent. Orin yanked Priest off the top, sending him crashing down hard through a couple doors to the floor. Now, Orin had a pane of glass set up in the corner, but as he threatened to put Priest through it, Priest just tapped out, giving up. The chicken move drew a lot of boos from the crowd as Orin moves on. Pagano would be out next to take on Dr. Redacted in an ultra-violent casket match. Redacted thought he outsmarted Pagano with this tube shot to the head, but that wasn't about to stop Pagano from diving out of the ring, wiping his opponent out. Redacted would later answer with a dive of his own in the corner. Later, the Doc would knock Pagano back into the casket, but would be unable to shut the lid. He would try for a dive, but would get caught and take a backbreaker, followed immediately by a blow to the back of the head. Pagano would then slam the lid down, securing himself the win. In the last match of round number 1, Journey Fatu entered the tournament to take on Atticus Kogar, who claims this tournament is his death sentence. Journey set the pace early for this match, having his way with Atticus at times. Fatu would hit a nice splash, but not all of his dives worked out in his favor. Then Atticus broke out the skewers, sticking them all over Fatu's body, including in his frickin' mouth. Journey would hit a pop-up powerbomb and then pulled his pants down, looking to give his opponent a little stink face. Little did he know he would catch a cluster of skewers square in his right cheek. But that didn't stop him from still landing that hip attack though. Kogar would counter Fatu by smashing 2 bundles of light tubes over his head in the corner of the ring. He would join him on the top rope and bring him crashing down head first with a headlock driver into even more tubes. That would be the end, folks. Atticus Kogar brings home the win, moving on to the next round. Starting off round number 2, Dale Patricks and AJ Gray would dip their taped fist in glass for a Taipei death match. They would brawl all over the outside of the ring, seeing Patricks knock a bucket off the head of AJ. Not slowing down, Patricks would also suplex AJ onto a line of broken glass on the floor. Then we got a bit of a head scratcher moment where Dale would set up a pane of glass on chairs and then sprinkle even more glass down on top of it. I mean, it's new. Either way, AJ was able to counter with a sky-high superplex, driving Patricks down through the glass on glass. Now, Dale would be able to kick out of that, but he found himself locked right into AJ Gray's submission. As Dale faded away just as Otis did in the first round, the ref called for the bell, meaning AJ Gray is headed to the finals. The Tokyo Towers were brought to the ring next as Bobby Beverly faced off against Orin Veidt in round 2 action. This match was just filled with light tubes. If they weren't being bashed over each other's skulls, they were being slammed onto them. Outside of the ring, Orin looked comfortable doing everything he wanted to his opponent. For a while inside of the ring, we got more of the same, with Orin taking the Bev out with an assault driver through one of those huge Tokyo Towers. Bobby fought off a second assault driver, but still ended up taking a bundle to the face. We got counters on counters though, as Beverly laid Orin out with a crossbody here. Even more light tubes came into play as Orin hit another Total Anarchy onto Beverly. Beverly kicked out, and just this moment of surprise was all it took to cost Orin the match. Beverly rolled him over to take the 3-count win. That means Orin Veidt takes the exit from the tournament as the Bev moves on to the finals. We have one more match in the second round as Atticus Kogar would go one-on-one with Pagano. Early on, Pagano would miss the senton to the outside, landing very hard. After landing hard on his tailbone, I'm not sure if he even fully recovered here. He was able to battle on throughout this match, but you could tell he just wasn't 100%. Atticus did his best to capitalize everywhere he could, But Pagano, believe it or not, controlled the majority of this match still. Even showing signs of it being difficult to move, Pagano was able to still land a nice-looking Spanish fly on Kogar. Atticus would counter a wheelbarrow into a bulldog, and then drove Pagano's head down into the mat again with this headlock driver to put an end to the match. So with that, the triple threat elimination House of Doom 3D finals are set. We have Atticus Kogar versus fellow 440 member Bobby Beverly versus AJ Gray. Finding himself the odd man out of 440, AJ Gray was double teamed from the get-go. Now if 2-on-1 wasn't enough, Otis was summoned by his brother to get involved as well. As 440 removed the canvas of the ring, exposing the wooden boards, they took their eyes off of AJ Gray, who let loose on him with a dozen light tubes. Take a minute, look at those trash cans filled with seemingly hundreds of light tubes. Eventually, the numbers would be too much for AJ as they tossed him out of the ring clear into the fans' chairs. I don't even know if I'm doing this justice because this became hard to watch as this continued as a now 3-on-1 complete and total beatdown. They just took turns tearing away AJ's flesh. What happened next was just about as close as murder as you can get. Outside the ring, they pulled AJ up onto these ladders so they could bring him down with a double suplex through panes of glass onto the hard floor below. Bobby rolled a lifeless AJ Gray into the ring, finally eliminating him from this match. Now forced to fight, Atticus caught Bobby from behind with his headlock driver, but he wasn't able to steal the win. Bobby thought about skewering his stablemate, but even after Atticus just played him dirty, the Bev tossed the skewers away. He then hit his Fisherman's DDT, pinning Atticus in the middle of the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Beverly takes his trophy, becoming the king of the death matches in 2023.